Hi everyone. Today I'm going to go through a hand that I played with Rob Barrington on our Wednesday morning tournament. Where when we played it, we kind of zipped through it. It was the last hand of the tournament. We were in, somewhere about fourth place going into the last hand, and it seemed like a nothing hand when it came up. But it was a pretty interesting line of play, and that earned us a top for a comeback victory. And I thought it would be fun to go through this hand and just kind of talk through the reasoning of why we did what we did, and you can see the auction. It started. We opened a spade in fourth chair. Our partner responded to no trump. We chose to bid two clubs, not pass one no trump. Typically, when you're 5-4, you don't want to pass one no trump. You want to bid your second suit. Sometimes, if your four card suit's higher than your original opening suit, then you might not be strong enough to reverse. But when your suit's below it, you pretty much universally will always rebid your four card second suit to show your 5-4 hand. And partner took us back to two spades. You can take a look quickly at their hand. They had 9 points. They had this is what's called a false preference. They actually sort of preferred clubs to spades, but they had a really good hand. They didn't want to let the bidding die in two clubs because two clubs is a pretty wide range bid. Two clubs only said that we had a minimum opening bid up until we could have anywhere up until about 17 or 18 points. Any hand that's not good enough to jump shift to three clubs is in our range, and three clubs would be game forcing and show 19 points or some 18 points. We might bid three clubs, but anyway, so two clubs is pretty wide range. So partner over there with 9 points has to be aware that we could still easily have a game if I'm on the upper end with 16 or 17 points and clubs and spades. This is how I would bid my hand. So they don't really want to pass two clubs. And once they're not passing two clubs, they're not strong enough to bid two no trump. They don't have a club fit to raise us to three clubs, and they don't have a suit of their own. So two spades was really the only bid that they could make that would keep the bidding alive. And it's really important to recognize that we are actually, for the most part, we're going to be 5-4 south. So it's actually good for North to take us back to our 5-2 fit rather than playing our 4-3 fit. So that was a good bid by the robot over there. Now the opponents led the king of diamonds, and dummy came down, and now you can see we have a 7 card fit. 7 card fits play very similarly to the 8 card fits. The only difference is really that the opponents have one more trump. And when the opponents have one more trump, there's a bigger risk of what's called losing control of the hand. And so we have 5 trumps. If one of our opponents has 4, then what's going to happen is as soon as we ruff once, we're uh, we're both going to have the same number of trumps. And if we have to ruff again, then what will happen is the opponents will have more trumps than us, and that's something we always want to avoid happening. And in 7 card fits, it's more likely than with an 8 card fit. It happens more often. That's something to keep in mind. But otherwise, we shouldn't panic just because you're in a 7 card fit. So when dummy came down, we decided we would win the ace of diamonds, and now there's two things we have to do on this hand. We're going to have to draw trumps, and we're going to need to establish our club suit. We have this sure diamond loser, and we have this sure heart loser, and there's nothing that we can do about those two losers. Those two are going to be in the bank, and that the ace of spades also a sure loser. There's no way we're going to avoid those three losers on this hand. Now in clubs, we have a club loser at least, maybe two. It's impossible to play this club suit for no losers because even if the club finesse is on side, what's going to happen is we're going to play a small club to our queen, and we're going to play our ace of clubs, and even if the king falls and we get our jack, we still are going to have this long club that's a loser. So we're going to lose a club no matter what the layout is of the club suit. So our best case scenario on this hand is gonna be making three, losing a trick in each suit. So over the course of this hand, there's two main jobs we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to establish our club suit, and we're gonna have to draw trumps. While we're in dummy, we might as well try that club finesse from dummy. It's actually with this club suit, it would have been reasonable for us to play clubs towards the jack or towards the queen because we have this inevitable loser. This time we decided to try a club to the queen. And we did this before drawing trumps just because of where we were. We were like, okay, we're in dummy. We'll play club to the queen. And unfortunately, it lost to the king. But honestly, we had to lose that trick no matter what. So it's not the biggest deal that it lost. Now, the opponents did what was quite predictable. They continued their diamond suit that they led. And we followed suit. And now they forced us to ruff. And now this is the beginning of what I was worried about, what I'm typically worried about when I'm playing 7 card fits. And my worry here is that the opponents have now made me rough down to 4 spades, and so now if the opponents have 4 spades, we have the same number of trumps. And so I can't afford to take another ruff in my hand. But unfortunately, I can see that the moment I let my opponents in, there's a good chance they're going to play a diamond and try to make me rough. So I'm going to think about what I want to do here. The other thing that was interesting, at this point in the hand, Rob suggested leading the jack of spades, and sometimes we would lead the jack of spades just because we wanted to get a trump out. We were hoping the opponents would duck it all around, and but in this case, Dummy's got 2 spades, and we can kind of see that we have some entry problems, and we would really rather they win the ace of spades right now, rather than having them wait and take it the second round, because if they win the ace of spades right now, then we're still going to have a spade and dummy to come back to our hand. And we do have a club entry back to our hand if they play back hearts, but the problem is that the clubs are going to need a little bit of unraveling. And so while there are trumps out, it's going to be dangerous for us to play jack of clubs and a club to our hand. So we would rather just still have a spade and dummy. And so by leading the king of spades, we make it very difficult for the opponents to actually duck. Because what happens is, if they've got the ace, they should be worried, especially if they have like ace doubleton. They should be worried that if they don't take their ace, then they might not get to grab an honor with their ace. And so if we had something like king queen empty fifth, it would be very, very important that they win their ace of spades. Because we have the king queen jack 10, it's not as important, but they're not going to know that. They're usually going to grab this king with the ace. Now, we want them to do that for a completely separate reason, to maintain that transportation of that doubleton, spade, and dummy. And so we play a spade, the king of spades, and they, sure enough, they win the spade, and the worst thing that could happen happened. They played back a jack of diamonds. Now, it was when we made the critical play that won us this tournament. So you can see we have only 3 trumps left, and if you look at our left-hand opponent's hand, they also have 3 trumps left. So if we ruff with the 10 of spades, we are now going to have an extra loser. The opponents are not going to under-ruff, obviously. They're just going to throw away a loser. And you can see now that not only are we going to lose the original diamond, and we have an eventual heart loser, and we lost the king of clubs, we lost the ace of spades, but now West is also going to get a trick with the 9 of spades. We didn't know for sure that they had 4 spades, but there was a solution here to this problem, hiding their hand. We have this inevitable heart loser. It's a loser no matter what, and this is the last diamond in the deck, that jack of diamonds. They're not going to get to keep doing this. This is their one chance to make us rough. And so what we did was we threw away a heart loser, and we didn't care. Here, take the trick now. This is called a loser on a loser play, and it's kind of amazing how often these loser on loser plays actually come up. But it's very common in these types of situations where you're worried about getting tapped out, that you often want to throw away a loser to avoid taking the tap. The tap means being forced to rough. I don't know how that expression came to be, but being tapped is a very common word in bridge. It means that when you're tapping your opponent, you're making them rough. Anyway, so they were trying to make us rough, or maybe trying to get their partner an over rough, but pitching a heart here was a perfect solution, because now they can't do any more damage to us. They tried pitching a club, but that wasn't good enough. Now when they came back a spade, we were able to just win the spade. And now here's what I was talking about still having a spade and dummy. We would really rather, so you can see that if we had to, just to show you the opponent's cards, if we wanted to unravel the club suit, we have to draw trumps first. So having that second trump and dummy now is where it really came in handy, because if we tried playing the 8 of clubs to our ace before drawing trumps, our last club was going to be marooned in our hand. And if we played the jack of clubs and a club to our hand now, West was going to rough. So we really needed to still have that trump. So going back, it was critical that we didn't play the jack of spades and try to sneak a spade through. Although with the ace being with East, it probably wouldn't have mattered. They probably would have won the ace no matter what. But it just, we had to foresee what we wanted to happen. Do we want them to duck the spade, or do we not? And we definitely did not want them to duck a spade. There was no risk of roughs or anything that we weren't particularly concerned with drawing all the trumps at that moment. There was no roughs that we were risking, so it was just a matter of entries. So we led that king of spades, and now we were able to just come back, and we still had 4 rounds of trump. We had all of our trumps that we could use to draw all the trump. And our clubs are good because they were 3-3 to start. And we made 140 for a top board. So the moral of the story is there's a few very big takeaways from this hand. The first one was sorry, let's just jump back to look at the whole hand. The first takeaway was just that 2 spade bid by North, very important, false preference, taking it back to spades. In any effect, the 5-2 fit is going to play better than the 4-3 fit. Even if they didn't have such a good hand, they would probably want to take it back to 2 spades, but they need to, with that 9-point hand, keep the bidding alive. Second takeaway is when you're in a 7-card fit, it's going to play very similarly to an 8-card fit, but we have this worry of being forced to rough too many times. Third thing, because it's a 7-card fit, we had 2 things that we had to accomplish. We needed to set up the clubs, and we needed to draw trumps. It's sometimes in 7-card fits it's maybe a little bit more common that we're going to go and attack our side suit before we get to trumps. But maybe not altogether. But certainly we had 2 goals in mind. We started with one of them, and then finally that loser on a loser play. That understanding that roughing that last diamond, only bad things could happen to us, and there was no downside at all to us just throwing away that heart loser. We were going to lose that trick no matter what, but it kept our trumps intact in order to be able to draw trumps. Thank you for watching. I will see you in my lessons.